Evening, we are looking at the Scottish landscape, so one of the Scottish lochs near the Elaine Castle, most beautiful location I've recently been to. So I have decided on almost a square format, and I've got an orange board, orange primed board, so I can use the orange color as some of the little gaps between some of the mountains colors, maybe part of the grasses, part of the foreground. So I'm interested to preserve some of the orange. So let's start with the composition. Most important line for me so far is going to be my horizon. I'll look at the shapes of the mountains and what's happening kind of in bulk for the lines of the stone.
Julia, I'm sorry to interrupt you before you start. Did you say Culzean Castle?
Elaine Castle.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to show you. I've got a picture of it here. We're going to do it next week.
Okay.
That one.
All right. Yep. Yep. So
yeah,
not
I'm
the
not
one
sure
I'm
if I
thinking
pronounced
of.
it right.
Yeah.
It's Ellen Donnan.
Ellen Donnan Castle. Thank you, Elaine. Perfect. So the castle is on this side, and that will be the loch from the other side, from the other view. Most gorgeous location there. So right, let's have a look at sketching it all. Thank you, ladies. So I'm going to have some white paint, a little bit of ochre, make my color, my colors runny. Tiny bit of my violet. That's not violet, that's black. So let's get some violet, and let's get that sketchy paint mixture nice and runny, so I can move about on my board freely. Put my image right in front of me as my reference, and let's find the horizon. So because I have a slightly different format than the photograph, I'm going to amend it to the square format. I hope you have my image in front of you, as I can't quite fit it on my demo screen. Right, so let's identify a quick shape for the horizon. I'm going to drop it somewhere here. Okay. Rough space. Just double check it. I've got something super light here. Okay. One of my mountains going to come up right from the top and spread out. I think I'm going to make it going further than halfway through. So that's halfway through of my board. If I'll make it a little bit further out, I think that will be more spectacular. And then the other mountains are going to come out quite small, close by. Okay, I shouldn't be working into too much details, but I'm excited to show some of them there. Then I have a beautiful part of the lake here. So I've got that open space. It's almost the same amount as the sky, but I don't want to make it too similar in volume. So maybe I'll increase the amount of the lake here. There's some sort of little hilly shape, and there will be some plants here. I think that's again a rocky area of the shore, and then there will be some grassy patch. Okay, I can work into that one later on. The shape of it, what I do like is some of those darker tones, so I think that's what I'll work on. I'll work on that semi-circular shape, maybe a bit lower, so I don't have as much. If I need to, maybe I'll get the the reflection a bit big, actually. Yeah, maybe a good idea. I'm moving everything a tiny bit lower. My paper towel. Okay, see. It's probably dried by now, but I'm going to let it it's still good. Okay, so let's have the lake shape slightly wider here, maybe even a tiny bit more dropping the line across. Just for now to see how that develops.
Sorry to interrupt, Julia. I was just wondering, is there a reason why you decided to go for the square canvas?
Yes, because I don't want to have. I want to have a little bit less the amount of the mountain here. Oh, sorry, can't see what you're doing. I wanted to show a little bit less of that mountain, and I wanted to concentrate everything a little bit more together. So I'm going to reduce the amount of sandy kind of pebbly area and kind of focus on that square shape a bit more, condensing the left hand side of the photograph a bit more, so it doesn't look too empty in that corner. It just looks a bit too similar and a bit too empty in that corner. So I think condensing it looks better. Hope that answers your question, Gabrielle.
Thanks, Julia.
You're very welcome. Right, let's put that one back. So that makes me consider other elements better. Right, and then here I'm going to have these beautiful, nice dark rocks coming down, and they will be in the loads of build up of different layers of the stone, how they come out from the soil, from the ground. Probably the formation, original volcanic formation of the landscape, or how the layers been eroded by the glacier. I'm just looking at some of the other dark shapes, what might give me some key reference points of interest. Okay, so that hilly shape could be still here. It's quite nice. And on this side, I'm going to have some nice darker chunks of the, I think it's a seaweed. It's quite interesting because it's when you're there, it feels like you have a lake in front of you. Then you've got all this seaweed and all the smell of the sea. So it feels very strange. So it's a seawater so far inland. Okay, so that's all there. And I might put some of those in that group of rocks as well. Okay, so that's again my interest point is to come to lead everything here, follow through, maybe coming through, and then just with a shadow reflection of the mountain here. Right, let me have a look if I'll do it that way. Ta-da, yes. What I was just explaining to Gabrielle is actually having a small amount of that mountain. Let's have a look. If I were to shrink it and move it across, would that give me a benefit? Having less. Quite like that darker tone. No, quite like how it's developing here with that amount. So in a way, I've kind of moved some of the elements one way, not from the photograph, and kept the other ones as they are. Quite like the darker tone. I'm going to make some darker clouds, really low here, close to the mountains. Okay, all right, so that reflection is going to come here. There'll be some darker rock still coming here. Okay, so that's my initial thinking. Right, so I can move my brush, small brush away and get started on my working with my larger brush. Get some fresh colors. So I have a clean palette here, and I'll need, let's start with some white, with some blue, and maybe a bit of black. To work on the sky. And maybe some of the sand and pebbles at the front. So I have my nice big brush, well, medium-sized brush. So let's just work into these clouds. So the clouds and the water reflection probably going to be the darkest, sorry, the lightest. Okay, where is this color again? I'm going to put a rough reflection size-wise, so that stays quite dark. And let's develop my lightest tones on the painting. So some white, a hint of blue, some black. Okay, that's come out quite dark. I have some violet here as well. Okay, let's have a grayish tone. Let's make some of these clouds a little bit more heavy towards the bottom. Some of them might be even darker later on. That's a very dark color. I think that would be a really nice one for some of my mountains here. They're so strikingly blue at the back. So strikingly blue. I was mixing a color for the shadow of my clouds, but I ended up with a good color, definitely good tone. I'll check the color later. Okay, I need to just change the angle here so you can see the colors a bit better, so they're not reflecting. Okay. So some of this blue. Tiny bit more darker color. So if I increase the amount of blue and violet together, maybe with a droplet of black, I can do a reflection, a bit more, tiny bit darker reflection. It's a very soft reflection, so far I'll just do it as a block of color. No, I'm not overly happy that's reflecting so much for you to see it. Let me get going with this corner. Maybe I can move the camera gently. Okay. Let's come back to the sky. I think the strokes I've done for the sky already drying, and they ended up being slightly darker than they looked originally. So in a way, that's the effect I wanted to have. A tiny bit more darker, so waiting for them is to get darker. It was good. And I'll do, for the moment, all of the reflection of the clouds in the water the same darkness. Okay, a bit more wobbly merge of the reflections with the water. So I want to build up on the water a reflection of different tones later. So far I'm going to just create a pattern of light here, so I can decide how much of that lake, oh sorry, loch, I'm going to see. I'll keep my lines horizontal. So if I'll end up with any strokes, they will remind me of some of the ripples of the water and not disrupting the view. Okay, that's good. I can still see a little bit of orange there. Okay, the colors are dry, so you can start seeing the colors a bit better. That's good. Maybe tiny bit of a lighter line might be not the right color for now, but that will give me an idea of the actual horizon. Some highlight on the water there as well. So while I'm here, I can do that. And for the sand and the pebbles, because I'm on the same type of color, similar color, I'm just going to add some ochre. And make it slightly warmer. Okay, tiny bit of crimson here as well. Okay, that's quite a browny color. I need to have it more violety gray with a bit of that warmth in it. So, okay, that's a better color. So that's will be all coming somewhere here. It's quite nice big shape. So I'll just quickly block it, thinking about my overall pattern of light and dark. I'm trying to keep this layer tiny bit transparent, so that orange appears here and there. That will be very exciting. Maybe even put more water on my brush. I might have gone a tiny bit too far. What is my initial thinking of the rocks? Position. Okay, so let's get that one. in. And similar color, but maybe tiny bit darker. So if I'll use this still a bit more hint of violet and blue while I'm using this ochre. Tiny bit darker, not lighter. So I just build up that consistency of color. Tiny bit more violet still. Let's check some of it out. Okay, still tiny bit more. I've got an extra palette here close to me, which I can't quite fit on the screen, where I'm getting extra colors. So that might be a little more of a darker shapes. Of some of the surfaces of the rocks. Just give me an idea of what that space might be. Tiny bit of light tone somewhere here, might just give a hint for it. And again, something similar type of beach. I will differentiate it in color later on. Don't want them to be clashing at the distance. Plus it will be in a different setting, so it will appear different. However, I can see some similar tones, similar colors for the edge of the mountains at the back. Maybe the heather there. It might be just a type of vegetation, I'm not sure. It'd be quite nice to see that change in color. I probably will blend it at some point, overlap with other colors. We'll probably paint all of this area and then overlap with the other colors later on. Yeah, so when these colors will dry, they will stop reflecting. Okay, that's a good start. And let's look at some of the darker tones for the mountains, for some of the rocks. Let's get some of them tonal graphic type of build. So I have some violet, a bit of black, a little bit of blue. still more stronger color here, stronger pigment. I still got quite a lot of pale colors on my brush, so I might just need to wipe it off and just go for much stronger pigment without extra light colors interrupting it. Okay, so let's check the colors. Okay, that will be the darkest tone for the reflection of the mountain. I'll make it quite solid, so it's solidy blue in color. Okay, I'll try to keep my strokes horizontal, so if there are any indentations, if there are any imperfections in color mixed on a brush, I'll see it as texture of the water. Okay, a bit more of a smudgy end, but I do realize that that blue is already dry, so it's not going to smudge well. I have to come back to it later. There'll be a little bit of debris on the water here, a bit of seaweed. For the moment, I'll just keep it plain. The edge of the water might be just a gentle reminder on those uneven surfaces. Okay, maybe a tiny bit of similar darkness at the far end on the right hand side. There's a darker mountain there as well. Be nice to see some of it. Gently having contact reference in color and the darkness of the other mountain. Oops. Okay, that's a better looking one, but I've got two wobbly lines here which need sorting. Okay, let's put a tiny bit of darkness there now. Watch it developing while the other colors will come along. Quite like that depth, but those colors came slightly lighter, which is really nice as well. So that's an extra bonus. Let's make some other dark, develop other dark sections. So my fellow blue is black. Let's put some of the extra darks. They might look like they belong to the water. I might need to differentiate it in texture, slightly different in color. But that's part of the rocks and the seaweed surrounding the rocks, kind of the build-up of that organic mass. So let's use the exciting line to establish some sort of surface to give a bit more more of an interest point. A nice rock here, maybe another rock, different in size or in volume. If I'm wrong color-wise at this stage for these shapes, I can work into that, but I'm interested into the dark patterns. Okay, it's a nice shadow, maybe corroded part of the shore. So the grasses are right on top, and this is more of an area which subsided because maybe the water frequently comes here. I just almost create some of the textures for that rock formation. That's a lot of repetition, kind of broken type of patterns. I really like these shapes. It's a beautiful location, so surreal, so postcard picture type of very unexpected. When we were driving to that area, that we might just stop for a moment to have a little peep and move on. Ended up spending quite a lot of time there, exploring the landscape, how naturally it's all situated, how the settings are. Okay, that's good to be just in such a calm valley. Beautiful shores, the mountains just coming so close, surrounding the area. Just wanted to sit down and do very little, just observe, just to breathe that air. Okay, some sort of structures going that way. And these dark rocks are quite similar in size at the moment. I will have to make them different when I'll start working into the highlights, medium tones. So they're going to be too similar in their darknesses. Or in their size. Okay, and there is some darkness. Again, that's part of the seaweed. I might add a small amount of green here now. Actually, the seaweed is not quite green. The seaweed has a lot of browns and reds and violets. So maybe this greeny color will come close to the edge with grass. So maybe a tiny bit of yellow with my dark green. So just create a shadow for the grasses here. And while I have this color, maybe it's good to come a tiny bit more right here on this short line. It's gonna come up over this rock. Maybe just extend it a bit more further up. Again, it will start drying. You'll start seeing the shapes and the better colors, the actual colors I'm working with. Okay, I've got that shoreline, but I think it's might need to be a tiny bit more higher. So it's quite a bit of a shadow, and the lighter grass patch is much higher. Where else this part of the dark grass is building up? Somewhere here. There's nothing green there, that's okay. And this rock, maybe somewhere there. And let's work into some paler, lighter green. So I have some emerald green and some yellow, maybe a hint of white. And other colors I had more in my brush, so those darker blues, tiny bit more white and yellow. That's all the color. I just put it quite flat, so it might have been, it looks quite a short grass, so maybe the sheep keep going close to the water and eating it all away, or it's maybe just a shorter type of grass because the water is coming very regularly to this area. So again, I'm just blocking. Created just a little extra diagonal here, instead of a flat surface. But my lighter strokes on top of that grass will have to stay horizontal. So just to show that the grass is not going up the hill or down, it's going to have that flat surface. Okay, let's see how that dries. Interesting how grass is going between some of the sections of the seaweed. It gives it a beautiful contrast. And some of the areas are just stepping down from this flat surface. And then close to the right hand side, looks like the grass is wearing out. You can see more and more sand, quite yellowy sand, or maybe part of the grass is just drying as well. Maybe that's what it is. So if I'll have more orange and white to go with my color of the grass. Then this area around the rock could have that dry grass. Section, just going around the rocks. Not as much here, I might just put a couple of strokes and leave them out. might just see how that develops as well. Quite like some of the highlights right here, close to this rock, small one. Again, just shows a little bit how it's all stepping down across the rocks. Tiny bit more darker grass, but slightly highlighted, so we can see it slightly more. Okay, so soft highlights on the grass for now. A little bit more boldness of that grassy color. I think it might be best to edit when the area is dry, so I'm just testing the color. But what happens, I'm gently smudging it in the existing color. Okay, at least I'm seeing that might be an option. Those little textures of the green. Just showing a little bit more space. Okay, right, let's come back to my super dark mountain. There are some green trees there as well. So let's get the lightest of them painted. They'll have quite a dark, deep green color. I'm using a hint of violet with my existing green, and I need to find that slopey area. Okay, my paint on the brush is a bit patchy, so going over it, stop that texture coming through. That's over the direction of that line of trees, and there's another line of trees close to the water edge. I'm using quite some soft strokes, so not overly runny, but they're quite pale. So quite soft, quite diluted and pale. Okay, I might be going for slightly different color than expected. Let's have a tiny bit more red to it. That makes the color looking much more Scottish. much more earthy type of green. I think that's might be the colour for the overall mountain, full of trees. Now there is a nice little gap between the trees which I could leave out. There's a tree on its own just away from the loch, from the shore. Okay, that radio green is quite a good colour. That's nice. I quite like that. And to keep the lines within possible shapes of the trees. Also can build up some darker tones now. So same green with a hint of violet in it. Tiny bit more darker tone. Again, it shows me the texture of the trees. The space in between those trees. If I work with bolder strokes, some of it could be smudged. I can add a hint of water to my brush and maybe create some shadows, gentle shadows, offsetting the paler trees here. Or if the borderline is too strong, getting the trees tiny bit more. Okay, I don't quite like the similar shapes here. Might have to let it dry. I'll go for very, very dark color in a couple of spaces here. And I might just smudge this one with my finger, the tops. Okay, then it's a little bit too dotty. I just turn it to a tone rather than too precise line. And now I can touch up again some of the shadows close to the horizon. Maybe again work its way to the previous colors. I'll need to watch carefully the shoreline so it doesn't go up and down, because we're trying to have more of a flatter horizontal line here. some small bushes, or maybe it's actually part of the wall there. Looks some sort of stone texture for this area. I'll probably put a highlight on it and put a highlight next to the water level as well. But let's keep it engaged with the colors. Right, the seaweed creates a nice, very pale pattern of pale lines on the surface. It's a perfect habitat for the otters. They're so good, so cute. Okay, just getting some of that. So if it's a highlight on a darker section, the same color becomes a silhouette, a darker silhouette on the light area. Gives us a really good sense of space. Kind of having the two shapes together. Tiny bit of light color still. Okay, maybe a little bit more ochre. Right, I might be losing some of the initial structures of those rocks, but I quite like the color here at the moment, so I can come back with the shape of the rocks because they're starting to be very similar. But that lovely orange is quite good, developing kind of stain in those areas. It also creates slightly fresher strokes. So the water reflections are already becoming quite exciting without doing too much to them. That was my wall. Giving it slightly bolder highlight on the top. Let's see how that will dry. And maybe a tiny bit more stronger highlights on some of these seaweeds. I like the direction of these lines, but they look a little bit too big. Well, not too big, too similar in its sizes. So So maybe as a group. As a group, they're looking better. Rather too many little individual ones. And that's a similar highlight, maybe of the seaweed line on the surface. Maybe just water reflecting as well. But some nice light. It's taking my attention. Okay. Right, is there any similar type of grayish color? I think where some of my orangey spaces left might have some of those extra stones in that area, just protruding from the soil. Just need to make sure it's looking different. It doesn't look too similar to each other. I think that's part of my... Okay, that still needs to be darker shape. That's okay, I can come back to that. Maybe that will be a darker part of them. Flat sections of the rocks. Just tiny bit of blue between the shadows. Not sure if it's change of the elements in there, or if it's just a shadow of the wetness, or there's something growing on it. It's the same thing I'll do with the stones here. They will start looking much more natural, or they start belonging to the surface more and more as I'll build up the tones on them. Even using the same color for some of the shadows around them. These little gaps will be very easy to fill in and create the surface of the broken part of the rocky edge. Okay, my flat brush allows me to have those nice strokes. Okay, maybe it's going to be slightly lighter, maybe slightly warmer, using tiny bit of red and ochre. Go a tiny bit, spend more time on these rocks, and I'm going to have a little break. Just finish this area slightly. Okay, I think I need to follow those diagonals that look much stronger than radiating type of lines I had before here. And maybe something slightly lighter. Okay, that looks better. Just gentle build up, a little at a time. A little bit more sharp edge, I think it looks better. And too smudgy or unclear ones. Or there might be some highlights, how the rock is breaking. Okay, I'll just cover this area now as well, so it will stay dark. And that orange is not interrupting too much. Although I quite like that orangey color. For some black, some violet, a little bit of blue. Tiny bit more water on my brush. That's going to be the shadows next to some of the rocks. Maybe leaving a little bit of orange in the tiny little gaps. I've got this color. I think I'm going to top it up in some of the area here. Tiny bit more water again to the brush. Just working the pattern of that darkness, or how it will be coming across to the rock, or how how it's will correspond with individual standing rocks. Painting them all together. Okay, so that's quite nice dark pattern development. I quite like that. Very nice. A little mark here, a little stretch of the darkness. This area looks quite boring, so we'll have to have some other interesting moments. That's quite a nice shadow. That's lovely. Oops. Okay, still working into all these excitement marks. Well, I've got this very dark color on my brush. I'm gonna dilute it with some water and put some, maybe some of the elements of the seaweed. Maybe a little bit more occasional marks, maybe. Just getting the directions, how the water been retrieving. Kind of from building up the path towards the water. So yeah, we were talking about that movement. So maybe some of these highlights on the seaweed on the surface will need to lead and turn around. That spiral of view. So by adding maybe extra darks here, we'll start turning it a little more as well, naturally, without paying too much attention. Okay, let's have a little break. Right, at this stage, I'd like to have a look at some sky and some highlights at the foreground, and maybe some extra exciting highlights on the water, and then play with some extra details in other areas. The sky, now on the photograph, the sky is very, very light. Got loads of white fluffy clouds, but are quite getting kind of grown into that orangey color. Sorry, my camera just moved gently. So let me see if I can leave some of that orange color out. I can always paint over it. So if I'll go for some diluted white, and maybe a tiny bit of gray, so it's still pale and reasonably transparent to see my orange. I'd like to leave some of it out. Okay, that's going to be my mountain. Okay. Okay, that doesn't look runny enough. Okay, that's a tiny bit better here. It will dry much more transparent. I can see it on my surface here, but again the screen doesn't quite translate it. Okay, that's not going to run, but that stays in place there. It just looks a bit too silly, that dip of color. Maybe that's why the orange will work. It's magic. Soften that edge to the fluffy cloud. Okay. Maybe a bit more something paler here. Okay, that looks super strong white again on the screen. Very transparent here for me. Might need to be patient and let it dry. Okay, that's a very, very transparent layer here. So decisions making now for the sky. How much solid or soft color I'm going to bring, and how much of the orange I'm going to leave out. Okay, it's a very dark stroke. Yeah, you can see how they're drying out, very, very pale. So you can see what's happening. I'm going to lean the board over. Maybe some of this paler tone can still be there. I quite like some of the gentle diluted orange behind the white, so I can be a little bit more brave and introduce some bolder, stronger highlights, especially here close to the mountains. And I haven't quite painted my last mountain here, which is still orange. Oops. No, that's a little too strong. And that's the edge of that wall. Let's have a tiny bit of that light, just a bit more close to the mountains on my reflection. I'll have a bit more water on my brush and go with the whole width of it. So the wash here is very diluted. It should settle in pale, meaning that that super light area is not going to be so super light. It's going to be soft. The edge here, close to the shore, could have much sharper, stronger white. It's a little too broken down. Let's see if some of it will come off or it's too late. Maybe just overall smudge it. If it's not going to come off, but that smudginess might create a softness. Let's give it another go. Just don't want too much detail, so that softness, sorry, that texture was applying with diluted paint didn't quite work. Need to go more solid pigment, and maybe then they just smudged. Nice, a stronger color now. I feel like if I'm gonna cover it, I'm gonna miss some of my orange underneath, so maybe I'll have to come back with some fresh orange. Maybe a little ripple, which is not in the photograph, but feels like something is needed in this area. The balance between how much details I introduce and how much calmer I want to see that space. These little areas of white start being a bit too similar. Right, let's leave it at that for the moment. I haven't made my decision on the water, of how much I want to cover and how much I want to keep in color. Okay, the sky is going to be okay here. Gonna have to wait for it to dry again to see that highlight. And the bolder white light, really nice strength. Right, let's do that small mountain. Otherwise it is jumping at us too much. Okay, let's do that one. Some fresh pale blue with tiny bit maybe grey. And some white. So I don't want it clashing with my original color of the mountain next to it. So I want to make it slightly stronger in blue, but it needs to be light in tone. At the same time, not clashing darkness with the shadows on the sky. Okay, that looks very much like the sky. Almost like a snowy peak, but when it's all dry, it's not going to be so light. Right, let's do some foreground. A little bit bolder highlights on the foreground, much more stronger ochre and white. Tiny hint of crimson. I need a really thick paint now. So if I've done my previous layer quite diluted, I want to have some stronger colors. At the same time, I still need to be cautious. Okay, that's the thing I was thinking about being cautious about. I don't want it to be clashing with the highlights on the sky and the water. So maybe I'll still have to dilute my color, but just do a second layer of diluted color. Let's try that. Gonna wash my brush, but just get a clean paper towel. Feels like it's a diluted color here. Let's do small segments. Yes, they do look bold and strong, but I know it's diluted color. It will come up much much darker as it dries. Just some of the corners. Tiny bit of pinky color, so it's not going to be too yellowy. Okay, that's definitely too strong. like that diluted color. Let's give it another go. When lifting, let's say I've got the lighter layer of acrylic, I just need to double check that all my dark shapes have been washed well, otherwise they will stay pale. Okay, that looks good. Wiped it good. Right, let's try slightly darker version of this color. Let's dilute it. Let's see what's gonna happen next. Okay, smudge edges. Making it belong to the surface already. A little bit of semi-dry brushing, knowing it will have the directions of the lines, but might not see the highlights overall as a strong color. Okay, so I've got some sort of path leading that way here, which I wanted to. And maybe just reinforcing its boldness and maybe supporting it elsewhere. With extra leading strokes. I don't like all these 3 pointy ones. So one of them will have to go and have a wider shape. So I'm just experimenting, placing a few strokes and seeing how the color is settling in. Don't want it to intrude too much. But definitely needs something present. Want some of that sand, that I don't know if it's part of it, it's lichens growing, if it's part of it is just the color of the actual stones. Okay, maybe too much texture here. Too great contrast, so let's skip the texture close to the foreground rather than spreading it too far. Not sure what this curvature of this shadow as well. So I'm not only looking at the highlights and looking where that light color is coming in, I'm constantly checking on the shapes of the silhouettes of the shadows, what's happening to them every time I adjust the light. No, that's this looks too round. That's quite round shape as well, but if I break it a tiny bit. So I'm battling with my own decisions. Okay, that's something that's interesting. And until I'm happy, I won't stop rubbing things out and give it another go. Well, I'm definitely happy with this sand area. Right, what's happening here? Might need to put some of the plants on top and maybe a tiny bit of highlights for some of the rocks here. Again, we'll see how they will dry. Maybe that's what takes some of the tension from the foreground away. Now it's a very foreign texture. It doesn't belong here. Very different style of painting, so these pale shapes will not work. Okay, we'll have to have a solid color there. And maybe a solid color somewhere in the center as well. Just really want to have it linked with the surface here. That's better. Nope. Right, I think I'm ready to put some fresh orange color on this area and make it sing again. I have to make some fresh orange and a little bit more yellow. So that's the time coming up. Oh my goodness. I completely lost the track of time. So that's the time when we need to be stopping. I'm still messing with little details. How interesting. So most, probably first an hour 20 here. I worked and done the big bulks of all the areas, and then I could spend quite a long time to fiddle with small details, small nuances. So I'm going to have to stop now as the time is up. However, what I'll do, I'm planning to do, I'm really liking that orange. I might reintroduce some of the fresh orange, maybe a little bit of fresh orange, little dots or little highlights come to the mountains in the back, and maybe some more of those little dots, almost like fiery spots on the shore here, and I think somewhere here on the sand as well. And I will just have to continue evaluating where my extra contrast is going to go. Possibly some longer grasses or maybe a small tree on this corner as well, not to cover all the mountains, but maybe just taking a bit more attention from that orange corner as well. But I'm quite happy how it's developing. It's nice flowing water, the reflections coming on. Yeah, exciting progress still. So thank you very much for today. I'm going to stop the video here now.
Thank you, Julie.